Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today I want to provide a guide to battle vests. How to plan one, how to make one, all that good stuff. So whether you're a beginner or you're more experienced in making vests and jackets, all that kind of thing, feel free to still stick around for any helpful tips you might find in this video. So without further ado, let's get started. First things first, it is very important to know how you want your vest to look before anything. So make sure to find some references from online to get an idea of how you want to structure your vest. You know, how's it going to look? Where are the colors? Where are the genres? Where are the bands? Is there going to be accessories? You'll be the only one who knows from looking at all of that. So I would recommend looking at battle vest tours on YouTube or checking out some battle vest pages on Instagram for some inspiration. Now on to the next thing. Before you even think of touching patches, I do want to note that it is, again, another crucial thing, learn how to sew or at least get a sewing machine. So if you're planning on hand sewing, you'll want to look up different types of sewing techniques. So typically the easiest one and that most people use are called the whip stitch. And for an example, I have a lot of that on my vest if you can see it clearly. And it's basically just like patch to vest, up and down, up and down. So that's typically the easiest, but if you want to spice it up a bit, you can always find more online. Just Google. And look up tutorials on YouTube, of course. Alright, now on to the actual vest. Now that you got your ideas, you're learning how to sew, start looking into what type of vest you want. Do you want it to be denim, leather, camo? Do you want it to be colorful? Oh, you could put on a pink one, who cares? Keep that in mind and start searching. You can find it from thrifting or searching online. Another thing you want to take note of is if you want sleeves or no sleeves. So if it isn't obvious already, that's the difference between a jacket and a vest. Do you want a vest? I know it's hard to tell, but this is sleeveless. You want a jacket? Keep them sleeves on. So that's another thing I want to throw in there. You also want to be sure about how thick the material is, because that's going to be crucial down the line when you want to sew patches on. Because if you use thicker material, you're going to have to use a sewing machine or find some alternative. And that's going to be a pain in the ass. So make sure you get the right amount of thickness. Now on to patches. This is getting into the fun part. So what you want to keep in mind while looking into patches and exploring what you like is, of course, the first thing, how is that quality? So I don't know how to explain this that well, but generally, look real close at how the designs are made, that they're clean and all that. I would say these are generally good quality. I don't know if I have an example of a bad quality one so much, but those are typically like Amazon ones where it's like it has janky logos and designs. It's not made out very well. It's not sewn well on there. So try to avoid Amazon or anything that looks too cheap, because although you might think, oh, well, this is a great option since I may not have that much money or anything, I promise you it will be worth saving up for better patches. The next thing to note is how thick the patch is. So much like the material of the vest, it's important to know if your patch is thick or not. So in most cases, thick patches are typically embroidered ones. So like my Cliff one right here, this was an absolute pain in my ass, so no exaggeration. I had to use a heavy-duty needle, and man, did my fingers hurt. You probably can't see this, but I stabbed my thumb like 4 times in a row doing it. Yeah, So keep that in mind, especially if you don't have a sewing machine ready, because that's what you will probably need with thicker patches like that. But generally, patches like this, you know, they're pretty easy to sew through on the edges. And especially ones like this where they're kind of flat, they're all kind of, you know, the same thick. Now on to considering sizing. So that's important to, again, the layout of your vest, how you want it to look. You know, you'll want to make sure that the patches generally fit on there. So I know sometimes it can be hard to tell, but pay attention mainly to if something says like a, you know, like a back patch, a full strip patch, you know, top patch, bottom patch. You'll want to avoid that unless you're doing the back of your vest, because they're generally pretty big. If, you know, that wasn't already obvious by me saying that. But yeah, most patches are kind of small like this and everything. Of course, you can overlap them. But just keep in mind to get like smaller, like, you know, maybe at the most what I would consider medium like this. And, you know, like this. When it comes to, you know, just stacking them, I guess you could describe that. More tips that I would suggest is to consider keeping a color theme. So this is not required, but I feel it can make the vest pop more if you have a consistent color theme in mind. So mine is generally like red and white and like yellow, and it's the same on the back. I'll try to turn around the best I can. Yeah, from what you can see there, the one thing that sticks out is my skeletal remains patch down here. So that's the only outlier, but I'm trying to tie that in more. I think I did because I have a death leprosy patch as well on the back. So yeah, I tried to keep a color theme. That's just my preference. Another thing that is totally optional, but what I like to do is try to limit the amount of genres on one vest at a time. So on this one, the vibe I'm trying to go for is like within like heavy metal, thrash, and death. I do have an exception for acid bath and crowbar. I know it's not that far away maybe from being related to those genres, but it is sludge and, you know, doom related. So, you know, I got those outliers, but generally this is mostly the other genres I mentioned. Another thing I would suggest is trying to keep non-music related patches or accessories, whatever, and, you know, political related to a minimum. So this is slightly different from punk vests. I know you'll probably want to add more on those kinds, but even in that subculture, you know, battle vests are generally music related, so you'll want the main focus to be on music. I'm not saying that non-music related things like political, for example, aren't important and you can't use it. Obviously you can. And in general, you can do what you want. You're the one wearing it, so not me, so, you know, do what you will with this information. But yeah, that's just what I would recommend. That's my preference personally. And yeah, so I have a few little like outsider things, like the Stitch and Angel pin matching with my fiance. I got Jason from Friday the 13th, you know, so have a little fun with it, but I would just prefer to keep it to a minimum with that stuff. And for my final tip here, I would highly recommend considering accessories, because those tend to make vests a lot more fun. So what do I mean by accessories? Well, pins for an example, you can see some of them on here. There's also other stuff, just to name a few examples, like spikes, studs, chains, you know, that sort of thing. So consider looking into that and how you want to lay that out, because it can add a little pizzazz to it, if you will. And to end this video off, I want to provide some resources to get some patches and pins and all that good stuff from. So these are some that I've used before. I have it listed here. So I'll be looking to the side here, reading them off. This list includes Etsy, studsandspikes.com, Blackzone Store, eBay, and Pull the Plug patches. I'm sure there's more, but those are the ones I can think of. Like I said, I would personally try to avoid Amazon, as most of their stuff is low quality. So consider using those resources or finding more by Googling it, of course. And that is all I have for you guys today. So if you found it helpful, I am so glad. And that concludes our guide to Battle Vest. So if you enjoyed, make sure to give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more videos from me. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.